The Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding Him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited. That's right, that's right. Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is Elder Rikosh Yar of the Gathering of Christ Church, here with your weekly Patreon update. I would like to say shalom to my brothers and sisters throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Right now, I'm in a lot of transition. I've been transitioning and doing a lot of moving within the last couple of weeks. So please, first of all, thank you for being patient with us during our transitions. We're going to have a new studio working on things that will improve our productions and broadcasts going forward as the gospel expands throughout the earth before the end. Okay? For those who don't know, I'm Elder Rikosh Yar of the Gathering of Christ Church. And let me say a hearty shalom to all my brothers and sisters out there. T. Johnson, I see you. Maria, hi. How you doing, Maria? Yataza, all the familiars. Charlene, hi. Kayum, Frida, how are you doing? Hi, good evening. Well, good afternoon going into the evening. Let me talk about what we'll be discussing in the Academy, and then I'll segue over into Patreon. But of course, I have to give you a Patreon update. All right, I prepared something nice. You brothers and sisters, my loyal Patreonies, we're chopping at the bit. During my transition, I know y'all missed me. I missed you all, but I have something good for you today. All right. So I'm going to go into that in a moment, but let me first state, first of all praises be to the Most High. Ahaya Ashar, Ahaya is His name, in the name of Yeshaya, Wa Rawak. That's the Most High God through Christ and the Holy Spirit. Shalom. All right. How are you doing? I see a lot of people filing in. All right, real quick. Let me tell you about what we'll be doing in the Hebrew and Bible Academy beginning June 25th. It's going to be more so an historical, archaeological based academy where we bring forth proof that have been hidden from the Western world. Proof that the Bible is in fact the Word of God, and on top of that, there's historical and archaeological proof to prove its validity. It's the book above all books. Gentiles, satanic Gentiles, hate the Bible. Why in particular? Because it calls out their deception and evil against God's people and against all that's right. This is why other people try to cast negative aspersions against the Bible. Oh, it's tampered with. White man wrote it. And when everyone in America and the Western world are reading Webster Dictionary and reading out of white men books, the white man's books for education, since chattel slavery, right? The white man did this, the white man. Listen, we're putting all those lies against the Bible to rest with archaeology and history. And this particular academy, I said I would do it, but now I'm going to make sure it's done. Finding the tribe of Dan. When we go into the lost tribes found, we're going to show you exactly who the tribes of Dan were and who they are in the earth today. We're going to also be going into the archaeological facts concerning Sodom and Gomorrah and the fire which destroyed Sodom, and that fire is coming to America, okay, and the Western world. So that and more, okay. It starts the 25th of June. I hope you're there. Go to historytimes.org to enroll. June 25th. Hey, we have some serious history they hid concerning the lost tribes that went into Africa. And we're going to talk about that too. Who's the conspirators behind it? Esau, who's the Roman Empire, so-called European power, the power structure of the Europeans, and the Middle Easterns were co-conspirators against our people when it comes to hiding the truth of our book. Thank the Most High for this book. Now, go to historytimes.org to enroll. Now, jumping right into, and I'm going to be taking phone calls. We have a full board, a full rollout on this topic today. I have a lot laid out, as you'll see. Today we're going to be going into, on Patreon, the slave game. And I know some people might ask, well, Elder Ricard Shiar, what do you mean by the slave game? Well, there's a game that's being played in the Western world, America in particular, where they found that they could play a game to sympathize with chattel slavery, where everyone that's actually promoting and talking about slavery benefits, except the people it happened to. Everyone else benefit outside the people it actually happened to. And it's called the slave game. Okay? Instead of going into slavery according to the Bible, they've given us a modern day, I would say, historical vision through their politics. It's revisionist history they're dealing with. The only time they talk about slavery is when it benefits all those who have destroyed us. The slave game. And why am I going into this? I received some email and phone calls with all the people out there, a lot of our brothers and sisters asking, what does the Gathering of Christ Church, Elder Ricard Shiar and others, what do we feel about Juneteenth? Right? I got a phone call the other day, messages. What do we feel about Juneteenth? Well, shouldn't we be behind and support Juneteenth? What is Juneteenth? Some people would like to ask. Well, Juneteenth is a holiday that came out of nowhere. That became a national holiday a few years ago, where there were these slaves in Galveston, Texas, who continued to work beyond when the slaves in America were emancipated. Okay? So they try to claim that, okay, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, even though there were some political scenarios in which they were looking to transition anyway, with our people multiplying beyond control. So how could they use this politically to serve a system that have destroyed our people? Well, they would transition servitude and allow free slavery another way. They would make it where you lose all your rights if you're deemed criminal. And now you still work for free, but I digress. But in Galveston, Texas, brothers and sisters, they claim, this is what they said. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and These people in Galveston, Texas weren't told. They kept on working, right? They kept working, and everybody else, black people, were free, having a good time, and these guys and these families are still under chattel slavery. And now we should remember them because they worked beyond the time of emancipation, and to make sure we keep their memory alive, we'll make it a holiday. Well, folks, let me tell you this. How long will we fall for the slave game? How long? Let me show you where I'm going here. This is what God said. This is the Bible. The prophets who were inspired by God wrote this. Therefore, my people are gone into captivity. Why? Because they have no knowledge. This is what keeps us in bondage. Because they have no knowledge and their honorable men are famished. That means those we go to for direction, guidance, security. Well, these honorable men don't have the knowledge of God either. They're famished. And their multitude dried up with thirst. There's nowhere to search for true knowledge. And this is why slavery continues. If not physical slavery, mental slavery. So here's the slave game, folks. Juneteenth, all black people in America should get on board. That the politicians and others are finally acknowledging the suffering of slaves. This is how they con us into our own demise. Because why? I looked into Juneteenth. Yeah. I looked into Juneteenth. And before we can go into Juneteenth, and I have a lot we have to show today on Patreon. The stage was set a long time ago under Barack Obama, where out of nowhere, there was a civil rights leader, or I would say in the background of Martin Luther King, who so happened to be gay by the name of Bayard Rustin. We started hearing about Bayard Rustin out of nowhere. Bayard Rustin was key in organizing the March on Washington. And it so happens that he was what? He was outwardly gay. And guess what? Others knew he was gay, and there was never a thing where Martin Luther King and others were judging him and coming against him. He was a great organizer. But one thing he was able to do, Bayard Rustin, was to put his sexuality and his choices behind him for a greater cause, which was his people. And that is the point that was highlighted, that should have been highlighted, not the fact that he was gay. Right? So all the people that could have been celebrated and given a Medal of Honor during Barack Obama when it comes to civil rights, he chose to acknowledge a gay man. Now, Bayard Rustin has accomplishments. Okay. But all in all, why did they highlight Bayard Rustin? And what does this have to do with Juneteenth? Well, CNN began to promote this. Fair use.
A militant and revolutionary in the fight for civil rights. Bayard was at heart a militant and revolutionary in the fight for civil rights.
Bayard Rustin served as a trusted advisor to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the
Fair
Montgomery
use.
bus boycotts, but he's better known for organizing the iconic 1963 March on Washington.
The one man in America who could do it did it, and that's why it happened. It had an architect. His name was Bayard Rustin.
So it's no longer Martin Luther King, right? as the architect, as the mind behind moving the United States to make what? To make civil rights for the people who suffered in chattel slavery. They switched it from Martin Luther King under Obama to Bayard Rustin. Right up under our noses. It's taken away what? The authoritative, leading, powerful black man as what? As actually the architect behind it all. And highlighting, celebrating a gay man.
But in a time when intolerance ran high, Rustin stood out for more than just his work on civil rights.
It was just one of these facts of life. Bayard is gay, he doesn't hide it. I said to somebody
Now, who is this?
once that he never knew there was a closet.
Rachel Horowitz. Rachel Horowitz. Why is a white liberal Jewish woman celebrating and highlighting a gay civil rights so-called leader or architect? What are the interests that the liberals have in this? But I digress. I have to talk about that on the other side. Now, this guy in particular, I have to show on the other side because he began to, one second, this guy right here begins to expose from the conservative side what Barack Obama was actually ushering in to destroy, that would destroy the black community altogether. Marxism. Now, in particular, why I'm going to the conservative side, because I don't believe they have our interests at heart either, is because it highlights one side coming in with a movement that the conservatives can now protect their families from, dividing America in two, which will lead to an eventual civil war. In the midst of them seeking to indict Donald Trump on some things that all politicians does, and if they were to actually get something to stick against them, guess what? Eventually the conservatives would make him their president and the union would be split. And if it's split, the conservatives are those who have the guns. The liberal cities and others are actually promoting what? You got it. They're promoting disarming Americans. Okay? They're looking to put in more gun laws or to make having a gun illegal altogether. But that's only being pushed primarily in liberal areas. So that means the people with the guns in the moral high ground will be against those who were disarmed. But how are they able to do this? Well, to have the moral high ground, they must demoralize one side, the target. They must demoralize blacks. Fair use. So this brings us to Juneteenth. Check out what our politicians, our politicians are saying out there.
And when I talk to children about Juneteenth, I said it is living.
When I talk to children about Juneteenth. When I talk to children about Juneteenth. So they're targeting and they're aiming this towards indoctrinating our children concerning this injustice that happened with the slaves in Galveston, Texas. Right? So when I talk about the children of Juneteenth, Now, when I talk to children about Juneteenth, I'll let them know exactly what it is. It's a con. And it has nothing to do with those who believe in God. It has nothing to do with those who stand for morality. And it really has little to do with the people in Galveston, Texas, that they're utilizing for this so-called holiday. Okay? That's just a talking point for them to do politically what they're doing. What are they doing? Look at that. Listen to me clearly.
And when I talk to children about Juneteenth, I said it is living freedom. Is accepting the values of this great nation that turned, I hope, forever against the idea of holding others as slaves.
Holding others as slaves. Folks, we could care less about what happened in Galveston, Texas when we were being held as slaves. Why? Why? We're in worse case now than back then, if you look at it. How many people were laying on the streets, all on drugs, tent cities? Why go back to this one time in history while suffering continues today? Why not address what we should be addressing today? Was slavery good? No, it wasn't good. Who can say that? Of course it wasn't. But our people weren't on the streets living in tent cities, drugged out, fentanyl and everything else. So who voted these politicians in to commemorate the freeing of slaves? Or did you vote them in to deal with the issues we're currently experiencing? What is Juneteenth? Fair use. Okay, here's the African con. Here's the African con right here. When what happened in chattel slavery was in America. So now they're using, brothers and sisters, they're using the organizations that are already in place, who are financed by the government, to lure our people into these so-called celebrations. These people are probably, who knows, Eastern Stars, Prince Hall Freemasons, whatever. A celebration of black history and civil rights. Now, I'm not going to show this whole video, but let's get straight to it. So the politicians are down with it. The organizers are down with it. They're being organized and funded by the American government. But then I go to this side because it's in the midst of Pride Month. Why would you put a day to commemorate slavery in the midst of Pride Month, that you name Pride Month, right? A month of gay celebration. So I thought I would go here to what they call the Buckeye Flame. The Buckeye Flame. Pride Month would not exist. Pride Month would not exist as we know it if Juneteenth didn't happen. So now we're getting to the bottom of what happened from Obama all the way to now. Bayard Rustin putting certain laws in place. Pride Month would not exist as we know it if Juneteenth did not happen. So now we have it, folks. We have why out of nowhere, they began to what? Make Juneteenth a national holiday. I thought it had something to do with benefiting black people. I thought it had something to do with black people who were not marginalized, but actually hated upon, chattel slavery, who didn't get the chance of being emancipated. But now I got it. Pride Month would not exist as we know it if Juneteenth did not happen. This is being Black Lives Mattered. They use blacks to push another agenda, but they'll use sympathy and something that we hold dear in memory, our Holocaust, to pull on the emotional strings to bring us in to their celebrations. And while we're in these celebrations, celebrating Juneteenth in the midst of Gay Month, the conservatives are saying, you know what? Look at what's going on with the black people and their children, celebrating with them. We're going to have to protect the values and the morality of our neighborhoods against them going forward, because they're being indoctrinated. And eventually these children that are celebrating all of this stuff will influence our children. No pride for some of us without liberation for all of us. Who's this? Marsha P. Johnson, activist, revolutionary, one of the inciters of the Stonewall riots. That was the quote. They used one of our quotes, but look who they have. A man with a church hat on with makeup. Why so loud June? June has become an incredibly significant month in America. Companies are figuring out how to incorporate LGBTQ plus pride into their daily existence visibly and boldly. It can get really colorful. What is Juneteenth? Juneteenth is the celebration of June 19, 1865, a day known as Emancipation Day for enslaved Africans in America. So it wasn't let me tell you folks, you got to watch their wording. You have to watch their wording. Because once you have children on a foreign land, they're now the citizens of that land. They're no longer Africans. But I'm going to go into that on the other side. The first celebration of this day was June 19th, 1866, celebrating the first anniversary of this original federal mandate. Now, check it out. The people of Texas informed in a nutshell, hundreds of years ago, this is what happened. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and these guys weren't told. All right? But now, what does it represent? Juneteenth provides us with an opportunity to celebrate the freedom of an entire race of people. The notion of race is categorization for people created by European settlers as the colonized American land. Juneteenth is complex because it requires us to acknowledge our American history with the reality and atrocities of slavery in America. To celebrate freedom would mean to acknowledge our original sin as a nation. Right? But then when you go all the way down and read through this, what does it have to do with LGBTQ or Pride Month? Well, did you know that Pride Month began as a protest by black transgender women? A black transgender woman? Did you know that Pride Month began as a protest by a black transgender woman combating police brutality? George Floyd. I'm just showing you how they use these trigger issues that happen in our community, but really it's another agenda being financed against the same people they're protesting for. Marsha P. Johnson was an activist, self-identified drag queen. This is what it says in the article. I'm not calling this person anything. Performer and survivor. She was a prominent figure in the Stonewall Uprising of 1969. How many of you knew this? This is nothing but what? This is nothing but a new Bayard Rustin con game to draw us in with our sympathy concerning what happened to us in slavery, so that we can be what? We can be the placeholder right dab smack in the middle of Gay Month. I wouldn't listen to me. That day is another day, and as far as I'm concerned, that day is straight evil and trash. I'm talking about that day. That's all I'm talking about. And it's getting our people on board with something. That is getting our people in celebration and out in front. And folks, they strategically chose June because June is in the midst of summer. A lot of gala celebrations are happening. Corporations are making money. Guess what? They could have switched it off and gave them February for Pride Month. It's too cold, and it's what? It's the shortest month of the year. They could have gave that to them and gave us, if they wanted us to celebrate, right, the most profitable month of the year, which is June. June and July is the most profitable months of the year when it comes to celebration and being out and actually dealing with commerce and trade. So I wanted y'all to, and so this is what I'm going into on Patreon, speaking of the slave game. I'll be going in starting off with life on a slave ship, of what we really experience. Deuteronomy 28. How can they talk about slavery and emancipation without including the Bible narrative concerning our people in chattel slavery? We don't want to hear nothing about some people who weren't told something. We don't want to hear nothing about any of the garbage that they can politicize and utilize within our communities to destroy us. You even have Horowitz, a Jewish woman, celebrating Bayard Rustin. Right? We don't need no one talking about our plight with your own narratives, whether you Democrat or Republican, whether you Muslim or deal with Judaism or whatever the case is. That's our narrative. Okay? That's our narrative. It would be insensitive if I was to make some reports on the plight or the suffering of your people, because why? I have no right to. What happened to your people is your suffering, and you cannot shape the narrative for what has happened to our people, but God can. If you're going to talk about our people and go into slavery, we need to talk real. Talk the Bible concerning the curses that would come on the children of Israel who are Israelites. That's number one. Number two, if you're going to make restitution, guess what? Don't do it with a holiday. restitution doesn't come with a holiday, then you can politicize and divide us even more. To divide us even more. We don't want no holiday or none of that crap. If you're going to talk about what happened to us, use the Bible narrative concerning us, the way you use the Bible narrative concerning your suffering. Don't try to politicize things. Go into Deuteronomy 28 and let the people know that the people that are suffering in America in chattel slavery, who are now being pressed on every side by you Gentile nations, are in fact the lost sheep of Israel. If you can't do it right, don't do anything. Because anytime they try to promote anything for us, it's what? It's inclusive with all who are destroying us. That's what inclusivity is when they say be more inclusive. It sounds like a good word, but it's putting us amongst people who are demoralized and giving us a negative view which will justify the government and others destroying our people. And if you want to take another page from the Torah, if you want to talk about helping God's people, look what Pharaoh did. Okay? Look what Pharaoh did when the Most High twisted his satanic arm into understanding that he must let our people go. You know what Pharaoh did? Guess what? The Egyptians all broke off their gold and all these other things and gave it to our people so that we'll have resources on the way out. So take a page from the Torah you read and do what? The descendants of slaves who have suffered here in America, break off your gold and your silver, your jewelry, and give those people reparations. With that, I'm going to hold tight, hold serve. That concludes our Patreon update. I have a lot more updates to go coming, and we're going to be doing a lot of things. We're going to be doing shorts, 15-minute shorts. We're going to put those up, short narratives on our channel. We're going to also try to do an early morning show for about 30 minutes or something as we go towards highlighting this truth, bringing this truth out throughout the four corners of the earth before telling the truth becomes totally illegal. Right now it's censorship, but you know where they're heading. All right? So folks, do not fall for the slave game. Let's go over to Patreon. I'm going to open up the calls. Anyone have to say, if you have to say something about this right now, the calls will be open on Patreon. 515-605-9327. All right, 515-605-9327. Don't fall for the Juneteenth con game. It has nothing to do with have nothing to do with us and the people who really suffered in this country. It's a way where the other nations who have destroyed us can incentivize and actually make money off of and politicize our suffering. I see you on Patreon. Shalom. And remember, the Most High is calling back Israel. We're going to make some phone calls. We're going to open up the lines. Let's talk. Patreon.com/AGathering144. Be a part of it. We're going to talk about the slave game over there. And please join the academy. Go to historytimes.org, historytimes.org, and enroll. June 25th. You want to do something to help the work in June? Join the academy. Nix all what's going on with this month. Nix Juneteenth. Shalom. Shalom. Happy Sabbath.
east is where we're from. The 12 tribes of Israel. In 721 BC, the Assyrian king, he took us down, we fell. With a great escape we went through the Euphrates. The Lord held the water still. To a land where no mankind dwelt, we went. The 12 tribes of Israel. That's who we be, Manasseh, the Cubans, Ephraim from Puerto Rico, Nepali from the Isles of Hawaii. The Lord is calling back Israel. Zebulon from Panama, Gad, the North American Indians, Simeon, the Dominicans. The highest gathering in Israel. The Arabs and Africans told us